3D Christmas Nail Art Tutorial by Hot Pink Zebra Polish. Begin by painting your thumb and ring nails red, your pointer nail with a white French tip, your middle dark green, and your pinky white. And then on your pointer nail, we're going to begin by outlining your nail and with a red line. And now I'm just going to paint that tip with a clear polish. I'm using my top coat. And then I'm going to place little red, almost like sequins, and I'm going to place them on a grid shape. And then with red acrylic, I'm going to just place a small bead, and then I'm going to press it out, and I'm going to keep forming it until it gets fairly cured. You're going to want to continue to fix and adjust it until you can't anymore, because otherwise it might settle and you might lose some of your shape. So that's half the bow, so then you're just going to want to repeat that part to make the loop for the other side. And then place a very small bead right in the center. And you're going to want to do that after the red acrylic has had just a little bit of time to really cure. And then on your middle nail, I'm going to be using some glitter acrylic, and I'm going to be making it into a starburst shape. So it's going to be like the beginning as if you were going to be painting a snowflake, but you don't want to add all the little details just because with the acrylic, that'll get kind of bulky. And the reason we're putting this the glitter acrylic underneath, it won't really show up, especially with it being such a dark nail, but it will make the snowflake pop more. It'll give kind of a, almost like one of those pop-up cards that you sometimes get in the mail where the thing just sort of like pops out at you. It's going to have kind of that same effect where when you look at it, you don't really know why it looks so dimensional, but you're going to know that it does. So now I'm taking a 180 grit file, and I'm just going to really gently file off the top layer of the acrylic. This is just going to smooth it out and make the paint glide a little more freely. So then, as I said, we're just going to be painting the snowflake. And so I'm going to paint a really thin line in the center of all those lines of acrylic that we made. So as I said, it's going to almost look like the snowflake is floating on top of the nail. And then add just those little details to each of the different, I don't know, what would you call them, prongs of the snowflake? Maybe not, that doesn't sound right. Arms? Whatever, you get my point. And then with just that same paint, just add a couple little dots as snowflakes off in the distance. And then on your ring nail, I'm going to be painting two wide, it's going to be the ribbons on a gift. And so paint one that goes up and down your nail and one that goes across it. And then with white acrylic, we're going to be forming a bow, just like we did the first one. And so I'm going to place that small bead, and then I'm just going to take my brush and flatten it out. Now, when you do use the acrylic on top of acrylic paint, the monomer in the acrylic is going to be slowly removing the paint beneath it. And so you want to be careful not to overly adjust the sides of your bow because it will remove that paint. But you can always add that back in later. I know some of mine disappeared on me, but you can always fix that. Then add another little bead in the center. Now just to make this bow pop a little more, I'm just going to take white acrylic paint and highlight the edges of each of the ribbons on the sides and then just circle the center. And then on your pinky, we're going to be doing a similar thing like we did on our pointer nail. So I'm going to paint that layer of clear, and then instead of putting a space between each of the little sequins glitters, I'm going to be having them slightly overlap in stripes, and this will give it almost a candy cane look instead of more of a quilted look. And now on our thumbnail, we're going to start with brown paint, and I'm going to paint an oval, and I'm sorry that it's so hard to see it in the video, but you'll see what it looks like in the end, and hopefully you can get a good idea. So paint your oval, and then you're going to want to paint a neck below that and ears on the sides. And then in the center of the brown oval, you're going to want to add 2 oval white eyes. And now I'm going to be outlining my deer with a thin black line, and then I'm going to add curly antlers. And also don't forget to give him his pupils too. And as I mentioned, when I'm giving him his antlers, I'm going to do 1 swirl on each side and go back and forth so that they're about parallel, or they're equal on each side. And then I'm going to take a really small bead of red acrylic and just flatten that out a little bit to give him his red nose so that he's Rudolph. And of course, add a layer of top coat. And when you're top coating over the little sequins, you're going to want to make sure that you add a generous layer so that they don't want to flick off later on. And top coat, it's hard with the snowflake, but for the other ones, you're going to want to top coat around the 3-dimensional and then over the top of it. Otherwise, it'll want to pool around the sides, and that's not so good. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like my design. Please share your recreations with me on Facebook and Twitter. I always love to see them. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!